So we've had boobs, bums, balls, and I'm going to get my 10 inches out of here. So I'm going to talk about why I track my location and you should too. Basically, I like to track my location all the time. I have my phone going, my GPS on it, uploading my location. So some good traces, like this one through Sydney Harbour. You see that lovely little trace veering through when I was on the ferry. Some bad traces like this one. This was me cycling from coast to coast. I cycled from Hull all the way across to Liverpool. There's no trace because my phone died after about 10 miles and I didn't get anything. So that was unfortunate. So some good things, some bad things. And some more slides. Mainly why I'm doing this, I run a website called Mapme.at. It works with lots of other services that you might have heard with, like Google Latitude, Fire Eagle, Foursquare and Twitter. And so basically you can pull in your location from all these services and it will suck them in and we'll use them. It's all in real time, so I know that you can take an old GPS logger out and you can store your location, but I'm much more interested in putting it up there on the internet and showing people straight away. We're also looking at it later and seeing where you've been, but specifically showing people where you've been and where you are right now. So a few years ago I went to China on honeymoon. My wife wouldn't let me take my GPS with me because she thought the Chinese authorities would arrest me. But even with using my website, I was still able to track my location because I set up some favourites of places I was going to be. I used Twitter to say, hey, I'm in Beijing. Because you might ask, why am I doing all this tracking while I'm on my honeymoon? Well, it's great for tracking your photos and say, you can geotag your photos and say, well, these photos were taken in Beijing, these photos were taken in Xi'an, all sorts of things like that. Is it all about photos though? Well, you can do a lot more than just geotag your photos if you take a location history. If you do anything on the internet, it will basically have a timestamp. So if you send Twitter, if you listen to music and you use Last.fm, if you do anything that has a timestamp, you'll be able to log it on a map like this. So this shows a trip to San Francisco I took last year in January, way before Twitter put any geo features into their system. But I can still show where all my tweets were sent and where all my what music I was listening to when I was in the middle of San Francisco or somewhere else. I also use it for finding out where other people are, letting people know where I am. So I use instant messaging. This is my MSN client. It actually goes into my alias saying I'm in Fact Cafe or I'm in Static or wherever I happen to be, and people can message me and say, hey, let's go for coffee. So this is, if you're at home, if you're in your own country, it's really easy to do high quality traces because if you have an iPhone or a lot of phones, you have free data or cheap data, that makes things really easy. When I went to Australia a few weeks ago though, I didn't have any free data. I could basically only track my location if I had some free Wi-Fi or something like that. When I started in Singapore and I tracked my location about 3 times because I couldn't get any free Wi-Fi. It just happened to be wherever I was, I would get some free Wi-Fi. Here you go, Singapore. So 3 times in my hotel, the Raffles Hotel, with Singapore Swing. Another time when we were shopping, that was about all I could do. But while I was there, I could send out tweets and I could say, this is where I was when I sent this tweet. So the one that's on, if there was one on the Raffles Hotel, it would be about Singapore Slings. But when I got to Australia, I actually bought a SIM card just so that I could get some data and actually do really high detail traces. And this is again is my trace through Sydney Harbour. And you see there's a tweet halfway through the harbour. I did send that from the ferry. This is all the places I've been. So the places that are bigger, places I go more often. So my home off to the left there is quite big. Lots of train stations. I use the train a lot. Lots of travel points, that sort of thing. This is a graph of where I've been, all my favourite places again. The bottom one is home, so obviously it's quite big. But you can see the client office that I went to is a big long stripe because I was there quite regularly. Whereas other places like my Vegas holiday are sort of sudden big jumps and then they don't disappear for the rest of the year. This is more sort of grouped together and I've taken out home. So you can again see the Vegas holidays, this big spike. SOTM is a conference in Amsterdam I went to, that's another big spike. But again, the Manchester office shows up quite big. London is more obvious now because I've grouped all of these locations today. Now this is where I have to break off because the videos didn't work in my presentation, so I get to cheat slightly.
It's a long time, isn't it?
So this is something I use to show where I am. It's a clock. And I've hooked up an Arduino little computer device and it literally checks where I am and sets the clock to show where I am, show the position. It's like the clock in the Weasley family house in the Harry Potter books. And it really does work. It checks where I am, checks where my wife is and shows where we both are on the clock. This is everywhere I went to in Liverpool in January, all run at once on a map, eventually. So you can see, Liverpool and Manchester, so I quite often go to Manchester. You can see them flying across, you can see my trips into town. See, sometimes I come back from Manchester at one time, a couple of really late trips back from home from town. This was my trip to Australia. You see me bouncing around. I didn't get very high detail traces, but you can see where I went. See, I went to numerous places in Australia and hopped through Singapore on the way back. And this is every journey I've taken in the past 3 years. And it's really nice, it's all rendered at once, so you see literally every place I've been. Obviously I spend a lot of time in the UK, but I've been lucky enough to go to quite a few other places. So there's San Francisco, the East Coast of the US. You can see my China trip just disappearing off at the top, and my Australia trip at the bottom. And that's all I have. Thank you.